So I'm Melissa. I'm with Caregiver Wellness Resources, and I love working with mindfulness and working with you all. And this topic is a really interesting and poignant one because as we talk about how mindfulness can help us be happier, live happier, more fulfilling lives, I've definitely had the discussion with people about how happiness may not be a sustainable goal. And that is actually our topic. So, and I've been on both sides of this conversation, and I'm curious what you all think. How many of you have thought about what your purpose or what your meaning is? Is it to live a happy life? Is it to have purpose and meaning? Is it to, you know, to live another day? I'm just curious how many of you have made happiness as a part of a goal of your life. And you can type it into the chat box if you're comfortable. You could unmute, but know that you would be on the recording if you did that. Yeah. Hi, Ray.
Hello.
Feel free to mute yourself if you like, Ray, unless you'd like to share a little bit. Anyone want to contribute into the chat box? I would love to hear. Okay. Yeah. Ben suggested happiness is one of his goals in life. So thanks for contributing. Work on spiritual life, which brings me joy, but not always happiness. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And so you could make the debate, I guess, or conversation that happiness, just like sadness, is an emotion. And emotions, thank God, change, right? They come and then they go. And so one of the things that's really been helpful for me throughout my life is to envision an emotion much like the weather, and how temperate it could be. Right now, today where I am, we have this beautiful sunny blue sky. And yesterday was kind of blustery. It was super windy. And the day before that, it was a bit gray. And I'm thankful that just like the weather, my emotions can shift and change like that. And so that's what helps me hold this idea of mindfulness, which is a sense of equanimity. In other words, we can hold two seemingly opposing things at the same time and still be okay. And so when we're aiming for always sort of this sense of elatedness, I wonder if the goal, and happiness is such a bucket term, if the goal isn't more clear, attentive, joyful, contentment, unruffled, able to look at things positively, which is the concept of generosity. Yeah, someone else wrote, finding pockets of happiness is how I want to live my life. Absolutely. I often think more in the terms of contentment with moments of joy, someone else wrote. And I think those are all beautiful reflections to have. If anyone's ever seen, and it's an older study, I haven't seen any up-to-date ones, but an older study about lottery winners, right? And there's a certain threshold. We were talking about this the other day at work. Somebody said, what my life would definitely be better with $60 million winning the lottery or whatever the pot is. And I was like, yeah, maybe. And the studies have shown there's a threshold of resources in which an individual have, right? We have our basic needs met, and we have just a little bit more of a threshold, but more than that, it doesn't actually exponentially increase our happiness quotient. And so if it's not about money, then what is it about? And so today we're going to weave in mindfulness so that we can look at these skills as a way to build happiness skills, and build our resources so that we can have those moments and pockets of joy. I love that, Anne. I work on peace and recognizing that there are ups and downs and feeling okay with that. I'm working on calm, knowing that I am not walking alone. And in just your single statement, I'm going to pick out a few really beautiful points in that. Recognizing that there are ups and downs, right? So that's that sense of equanimity, finding how we can be okay with what is, with situations that happen, so that we're not overly elevated or escalated or dysregulated emotionally. Working on calm, knowing that I'm not walking alone. And one of the key components, we've talked about, I think, loneliness in one of our earlier sessions this year, and how Vivek Murthy, who is the U.S. Surgeon General, has declared loneliness as one of the great epidemics and unrecognized problems of our lifetime. And so this idea of connection can help us cultivate more moments, right, of joy, of peace or contentment, and certainly happiness. So let's start with our first mindfulness exercise. If you'll take your eyes just a little bit off the screen and consider closing them just for a moment, and then allow yourself to exhale fully here. And then draw a soft inhale, feeling the coolness right at the edge of your nose. And then a long, slow exhale through the mouth if you can, almost like you're blowing out through a straw. And breathe in again through the nose if you're able. It filters and warms the air. And then breathing out through the mouth as if you're blowing through a straw, and go slow. Notice your shoulders drop, your face soften. Let's do one more. Breathe in through the nose, feel the coolness. And then breathe out through the mouth as if you're blowing air through a straw. And then just pause, breathing in and out here. Notice what feels better, the same, or different in your body. So noticing breath, you can bring your eyes back to the screen. Noticing pattern of breath can disrupt what I would call future tripping. So if you tend toward anxiety or anxious feelings or worry, bringing yourself into the present moment, breath is one key component of that. It also helps with rumination or looking in the rearview mirror, right? So any of those symptoms where we're constantly bombarded with memories that feel unpleasant or cause a sense of dread or even sort of sadness, right? Staying in the present moment, helping us guard against over rumination or over future tripping can be really useful. So checking in constantly today, if you will, as we practice together. What is the quality of my breath like? Am I breathing? And I would venture to say all of us are, but I hear a lot, I don't breathe. I'm like, well, you do, or you may not be here, right? So it's more about the quality, the texture, the way that you're breathing. We tend to do, right, shallow breathing when we feel anxious. It's a skill, right? The breath comes more to the surface when we're trying to do something, but learning how to breathe a little bit deeper helps exercise the diaphragm, which produces more oxygen. I cannot say that word today. Anyone going to say that for me? Oxygenization. Thank you very much. I think I need more coffee. And throughout our body, right? So today we're going to do things a little bit differently and do a little bit of journaling. So I've got a blank page. If you have access to a pen and some paper, I would love for you to find that. You can type on your computer or your phone. My preference perhaps today, if you're willing, is to not do that. And the reason is it can be quite distracting. I will say I do utilize that a lot. I don't know how many of you use voice memo. I use voice memo a lot to remind myself or to kind of talk through something and listen to it later. I'll also do something with one of my best friends. We will leave each other these voice notes rather than texting. And I love it because it's a little bit of a rundown of the day. I can play it back. I can hear her voice. I can hear the inflection. And for me, it's more meaningful and connective than a text, and really kind of helps me stay connected with her. She lives in pretty far away from me. And so it's this way we can kind of go back and forth. And we have a rule. Basically, it's 2 of 3. So we try to make sure that at least 2 of the 3 things we've talked about are either neutral or pleasant. So it's really easy when you're talking to someone who you're really close with to let it be about venting, because it's someone you trust and someone you feel safe with. And so I would encourage you, if you have this person in your life, consider the rule of 2 of 3. So if you're really kind of leaning over into this side of rumination or being worried about something, what's gone well? What can you reflect on that actually is either neutral, like, okay, the sun's out today. You don't have to silver lining everything. Or gosh, maybe I feel a little less stressed than I did yesterday. That's pretty neutral, right? So trying to find a way to create these moments of leaning into something that's going to bring support as opposed to the things that are going to continuously drag you down. And so that's really helpful for me. So you've got your pen and paper, and let's start with just being curious. I'd like you to, for a moment, to reflect on someone in your life or someone that you've encountered in your life that you admire, that you respect. It could be someone who's passed. It could be someone currently living. It could be a professional that you run into often. I think of someone who is a bit of a mentor to me, and we have a bit of an email communication is how we communicate. And so reflect for a moment, jot down a few of the qualities that this person has, someone you admire, someone you respect. You can say their name. You can even draw a little portrait of them if you're feeling creative. Mine looks a bit like a stick figure. Yeah, we'll take just about 30 more seconds. What are some qualities of this person that you admire? All right. If some of you want to type into the chat box a few of those qualities of the person that you respect, you admire, you hold in esteem. Honest, open-minded, vulnerable, curious. Yeah. Kind, funny, understanding, empathetic, tenacious. I love that word. Powerful, confident, faithful, loves family, reaches out, offers encouragement, giving, generous, secure in who they are. Yeah, absolutely. So take a look at the list that you've written. Mine is very similar. It's I wrote receptive, empathetic, compassionate, wise, fun. And so as you look at that list, circle anything that you recognize in yourself. And then you can put a star next to things that you would like to improve upon. So circle the things that you feel like you also have, and star the things that you would like to improve upon. Someone else wrote patient, smart, always learning, persistent. Yeah. And so I'm curious if you could write just one reflective sentence based on this exercise. So what did you notice? What feels similar? How did it feel? Is there an emotion that comes up for you in reflecting on this person, and then how you also share similar qualities? And then what are you noticing in your body? Maybe a smile comes on your face. Maybe there's a softness in your belly as you're thinking about it. Take just a few more seconds. So you're writing a few sentences on how this exercise was for you. Is there an emotion that came up, a sensation that came up? Can we have a circle and a star? Of course. Oh, absolutely. If I'm really transparent, I have a star next to all of them, and I have several circles too. All right. And feel free to type into the chat if there was anything that was surprising for you. And that could be a reflection, an emotion, a sensation. This particular exercise is called creating an ally. You can do it with an imaginary person as well. So if you weren't able to really bring to mind someone that really kind of resonated well with you, I've done this with teenagers and younger kids, and we think about superheroes, or we think about maybe a show that they watch a lot, or a character in a book. And what I find when we create allies is that there generally is characteristics that align with our own, because we look and admire toward people that are similar to us. And it also helps us realize that we actually have been cultivating these attributes all along. And it's important to remember, right? Inherently who we are is whole. Inherently who we are, right, is people who of generosity. If we didn't believe that most people are really kind of doing their best, then that's a quality we need to work on. Because generally speaking, most humans, right, do have good intention, and it's important to cultivate this quality. Why? Because that's one of the qualities of happiness. When we can look at someone else and it's the quality of generosity, assume that this person might be doing their best, or the best they can under the situation or circumstances. I certainly hope that people look at me even on my worst day and go, she must be having a bad day. Oh boy. Rather than, oh, she's a terrible person, right? So I would love for someone to have that same lens on myself, on me, that I'd like to extend on others. Let's take this little ally a step further. So, and we'll do it in a mindfulness exercise. So you can take your eyes just a little bit off the screen. you can take something, this quality of this person. You can even create in your mind an image of the person that you admire, respect, or you feel connected to. And then imagine yourself standing next to this person as well and joining the qualities together. So if there was a quality you both shared, whether it was patience or sense of humor or some of the other qualities, persistent, offers encouragement, loves family, understanding, empathetic. So imagine yourself in this moment embodying one of those qualities that you've circled. You already feel you possess. And if you can't quite get there today, you could imagine aspiring to it. And where do you feel or experience that quality in you? So for me, I'm thinking about empathy, which is the ability to feel with another person. And so I feel that kind of around my heart. I feel this, both a little tug and a lightness as well. Just noticing what that feels like. So being curious. And when you're ready, you can bring your eyes back to the screen. So employing an ally is helpful for us to recognize these qualities that we hope to embody. And if we're leaning into, having moments of joyfulness and having moments of happiness, it's important to cultivate the qualities that we admire and respect most in others. It's a step in that direction. So one of the definitions of mindfulness, which I really, really love, is this idea that it's so simple, of having a clear mind. So in order to have a clear mind, it's not about not having thought. So we've talked about mindfulness being this giant bucket of tools, of all of these things, in which brings us into the present moment with an attitude of openness and curiosity and non-judgment. And when we're in that place, then we're able to make decisions and to do things out of a place of clarity and clearness. And being able to do that also gives us something called agency or choice. And so I mentioned earlier sort of two different states of being, and they're not traits, they're states. So that future tripping, that looking forward to the future of worrying or anxiousness, it's a state. It's not, I am an anxious person. It just might be, I am experiencing anxiousness. Or if I were someone who thought a lot about the past, maybe I've had trauma in my life, or perhaps I've had loss or grief that I've experienced, or something has happened and I just can't quite let go or release the memory of it in such a way that it brings a heightened sense of hypervigilance or a feeling or sensation in my body, which causes stress. And so again, that's rearview mirror thinking and future tripping. Those are my favorite ways to describe those. Mindfulness actually creates like a speed bump for those things and allows us to pause long enough to check the facts. And so we're going to take just a few minutes to journal here. And you can write down whether you're a future tripper or if you're a rear view mirror person. And maybe you do a little of both. If you're human, you probably do. And then next to one of those, write maybe just a word or two to describe something that comes to mind for you. So I'm going to pick future tripping. And I'm thinking about something that I have to do next week. And it involves driving. So I don't like to drive. And so I am kind of future tripping about this. So I'm actually going to write the word car, or you could draw a car if you want, if you're feeling like that. But if there's one word that sort of describes either something you're future tripping or something that you're rear view mirroring, just a word. You don't have to go into full dialogue about it. And then next to that, write an emotion that comes up for you. And my emotion is anxiousness because it's a future tripping thing. So feeling a little anxious. And then in the next column is a sensation. And for me, it's a little bit of an elevated heart rate. But you might have another sensation. Maybe your palms get sweaty if you're future tripping. Or maybe if you're a rear view mirror person, you're thinking it might make you feel heavy. Or something in your stomach, maybe digestion's a little off. And then look at those columns. So you've chosen either future tripping or rear view. One word to describe what it is you're thinking about. And then a word for the emotion. And then noticing in your body. And then take a moment to write a couple of sentences on what would be the reality. So this is something I would call fact checking. So I'm going to list things like, I'm feeling anxious about the driving. So my fact checking is I'm not going to be alone. And I'm driving during the day. So I always feel a little better about that. I'm always prepared. So that's a good fact check for me. Like, okay, this anxiousness is a little unfounded because I will be prepared. And being prepared means I'm going to have, caffeine or snacks or my favorite thing to listen to, or I might even look forward to having a phone call with a friend while I'm driving. If you're rear view mirroring and you're fact checking something that's happened in the past, a great way to do that is to remind yourself where you are in this moment, how far you've come. If it was a specific incident, you might remind yourself that, is that still happening now? What's different about right now? What am I experiencing? What am I noticing? Maybe just take about 30 more seconds to write. And feel free to let me know if you ever need more time. So you can always put that in the chat too. Nice. So someone wrote that I'm a rear view person. I had to write that I've learned from these mistakes and I'm better because of them. Yeah. I'm so glad that you put that because, right, that's what the past teaches us, right? It offers us insight into how we would do something differently. And the future teaches us to stay more in the present because by borrowing the trouble or the anxiety and bringing it into today certainly doesn't make our day any better. But just like I wrote, it helps me actually be more prepared so I can make that choice and come from a place of agency. Nice. All right. Anyone else want to share anything from that experience? So the other components that I love as we think about, and it's kind of almost like a dual here. So what we want to think about in terms of cultivating happiness or joy is a lack of suspicion and resentment. So when we come from a place of like, not assuming the best in the other person, right? Or nursing a resentment or a grudge or holding on to something. I also teach a yoga, a trauma-informed yoga. And oftentimes I'll get these comments about like, this is my first time. I'm not sure I'm doing it right. I don't even know. And I get this about mindfulness too. How do I know I'm doing it right? I'm like, well, no one is going home thinking about you. Like, if we were doing yoga together, no one's going to go home thinking about what the person next to me was, how they were moving. Nobody cares how you were moving, right? And mindfulness is the same way. The person who benefits is actually you. When we're so focused on the other or othering, we actually steal from ourselves this inherent joy or happiness that we could have. And so kind of shifting the lens a little bit more to sensation allows us to be in the present moment. Yeah, it's pretty big. And so along those lines, if you are a rear view person, that's someone who lives in the past. It's difficult to have continuous happy moments when we are constantly in the past. How many of you know of people who pretty much just live or like to live in the past? Yeah. And that living in that past can create a lot of symptoms which can be uncomfortable for the body. I always like to when I share with people in therapy, someone might have done something to them and they're like, well, if I continue to live this way, they win. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. And also your thinking, the thinking that you manifest and present to yourself, when you keep heaping more and more of I should have's, I could have, or even thinking about the other person, you're the one who loses. It's not so much that they win, it's actually that we lose. I think I've shared this before. It's one of my favorite concepts or principles from Buddhism. They talk about the second arrow, how the first arrow that happens in a situation is the suffering we might feel. So if we've lost someone or lost something, or experienced an event and it's created, right, sadness or suffering, the second arrow is the thoughts that we have about it. And those are the things that we can actually control. So we heap more on ourselves when we continue to be in that state of past mistakes or harboring resentment. And those, when we can look back, much like Ben did or explained, he's like, oh, I actually learned when I looked in the rearview mirror from those experiences. That's when we can heal that gap and make a difference. So let's take a moment. If you are someone who tends to hold things, so maybe you're a holder, or maybe you're someone who tends to drive back in the past or have your gear in reverse. List something, or you could write a few sentences that is the antidote for you. What brings you back in the present moment? Keeps you from firing the second arrow, so to speak. So what helps you? What are some tools that keep you into the present? You can create it like a list. You can write sentences. You can draw pictures. But what helps you anchor yourself to the present moment? We'll take about 1 more minute. Just a few more seconds here. I'm going to read a comment from the chat box. This person put, I also learned when looking back and what people have said is more about what they're about in that moment than me. And that is so true. It's important. It's kind of like that second arrow. You cannot control what other people say, what other people do, as much as we'd like to try. They are certainly out of our control. We can make requests of them. That's why we have societal rules and things like that, and norms and culture. But for the most, right, the only thing that we can control is our own response or reaction to things. Yeah. And she said that she's married to someone who lives in the past, and it can be hard for a relationship. Oh, it's so interesting you brought up being a fixer. Not that I can relate to that at all. But yeah, so focusing on the present. Yeah. Reminds me of a technique that I use quite a lot still, is distraction. So how many times can you refocus on the present moment? Noticing a sky, noticing a landscape, noticing an intrinsic quality about the other person. So really kind of bringing it back to the present moment. And I love, Ben, you put gratitude, and that's where we're headed next. And so one of the biggest antidotes is 3 good things. And so go ahead, I'm going to have to flip my paper over. I've done a lot of writing. So ask yourself, and you can reflect on today. I know we've only kind of like a morning or a half a day in some places, but you can also reflect back on yesterday or something that happened this week. So ask yourself what went well. And I'm a big number and list person, so I might list them out. So 3 things that were good. So it could be highlights, could be things that happened. The only requirement is that they are just not negative things. Could be even neutral things. Our brains are actually wired for negative bias, and that has to do with our nervous system. So there's a principle called nociception. It's that moment in which we perceive either safety or danger. And so your brain is constantly judging. Is this person safe? Is this bad? Is this good? So you're constantly making this analysis, and we know that by how our body responds. Is my heart rate fluttering? Is my breath up in my chest? Is my jaw tight? Is my voice squeaky? Am I wanting to leave the room? Am I wanting to stay and, be embraced by someone? So we're constantly making these choices and decisions throughout our day. So a way to move away from negativity bias that is a natural part of our brain is to reflect on these 3 good things. So I'll give you a little more quiet here and let you write your 3 good things. Hopefully some of them are smile worthy and feelings of happiness or joy or contentment pop up. Right, now we're going to move on to the next step. Pick one of these things to focus on and consider reflecting on the why. So reflect on the why. I'll share one with you. This past weekend was my son's 18th birthday. And I actually wrote him a letter, like I do on most of his birthdays. And I reflected on some memories. I reflected on qualities that he has that I really admire in him, and a funny story here and there. But what I notice most as I think about why I'm grateful is just this sense of vulnerability, open-heartedness, a sense of pride. So I notice how it makes me feel. So the why is a really important key component to gratitude. Take just another minute or two to write about the why and let it be full sensory, emotion, sensation. And if you feel like you're done, you can put your pen down for a moment and just either closing the eyes or gazing just past the computer. Allow yourself to embody this feeling. So for me, it's just this radiance. It's a vulnerable radiance, pride, ease. There's almost a component of bittersweet to it for me. And when you're ready, allow yourself to breathe, taking a couple of breaths and bringing your attention back. If anyone wants to share how that experience was, feel free to type that into the chat. And hopefully, let me know if it doesn't make sense about understanding the why. So if you were going to create a gratitude practice, rather than a list of 10 things, wow, that's a wonderful idea. If you could even boil it down to one, reflect on the why, the feeling, the emotion, the sensation of it, it's actually going to help you create a habit because you put a memory marker on it that feels different from other things. The way to create memory is things need to be surprising, novel, different. And so that's how memories are formed. That's how habits are formed. And so when we can recognize that the things that bring us joy and happiness are also marked in our bodies, right, in our neural pathways, then we are more likely to continue to do those things. It's pretty important. All right. We have just a couple more, and I think these are two really big things. I'd love to share what people wrote. Yeah, it feels great to review the gifts I've given to others because I want to pay it forward. Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, that's the beauty of generosity. It's a giving and a receiving. So I always think about it as if you go to hold someone's hand, right? Your hand is open. to receive it. We can't go to hold someone else's hand and have a closed fist. So we have to let go of other things that we're carrying, open our hand, which symbolizes vulnerability, receiving, in order to take their hand, which is giving to them, right? And supportive for them. So it's mutual. I love this. So I did something I'm very proud of this weekend. It was a small part of something that will help my community in the long run. And I felt proud of myself and a sense of warmth. Oh, it's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. So this brings me to my favorite factors that help cultivate happiness. We've really been talking about getting curious and the sense of curiosity, and how if we really tap into how it changes our body physiologically, that can help manifest happiness. And exactly what she touched on, when we can find something bigger than ourselves, either to connect to or to believe in or to be a part of, that helps us cultivate happiness. So it is one of the most beautiful antidotes. And I do this several times throughout our series, but I'm going to do it again today. It's this idea of having a narrow view versus a wide view. So if you want to take just a moment to pick up something that has some writing on it, I'm going to pick up a Post-it note. And I'm going to look at the Post-it note right in front of me. You could take a pen and look at the writing on the pen. But we're going to go back and forth. So I'm going to look at the writing on my Post-it note and notice how focused I am. And then take your eyes up. You can look past the computer and look at something right in front of you and see how much you can take in. So I'm looking straight ahead, but I'm noticing everything as if I were looking at a landscape painting. And then I'm going to bring my eyes back to my Post-it note, narrow focus. And then take my eyes back up and look at as much as I can. Whether if you're looking at a room, you can look at the room and try to drink in as much as you can without looking around. You're really just looking forward. And then one more time, go down to your note, focus view, notice what's happening in your body when you focus, and then look back up. And then you can bring your attention back. The science behind that is about our nervous system. Sorry, my computer's jiggling. You have a series of cranial nerves that run right behind the eyes, behind the ears, and the throat. And these nerves innervate through the whole body. This particular nerve is called the vagus nerve. It's what sends us information, sensations, sweating, digestion, heart palpitations. Our body gives us sensory information first, and then we have the thought second. And that's because of these nerves. So they're also attached, right, to the eyes. That's why when we are feeling a sense of danger, so I mentioned that moment in which we decide something's safe or dangerous, our vision actually becomes really narrow. They call it tunnel vision. That's why if you witness, let's say, and I did the other day, I was leaving a grocery store and I saw someone back out, and it was like I was watching the whole thing in slow motion. It was just like the movies. I honked my horn. I was just watching it, and I was like, I can't believe I'm watching an accident happening and there's nothing I can do as I'm honking my horn. Do you hear my voice? Like it just went up like a little bit and closed a little. That's what tunnel vision does. you're really focused. I couldn't tell you anything else about the parking lot, but I could tell you just that moment of watching the cars. When we have a calm nervous system or a sense of embodied safety, that's why they teach you when you're driving, right? Defensive driving skills of looking and really noticing, checking, right? That's a sense of embodied safety. So the wider view that we can take brings a sense of ease and calm to our body. And I love that, because anytime we're thinking narrowly, like really focused on the things that have gone wrong, or being resentful, or living in the past, right? We're really focused on ourselves. When we can pull out and take a wider view, we're looking toward community, toward connection, toward the bigger picture of things. I didn't queue it up today, but if you are into Googling and you want to watch this little video, I don't know how many of you remember from Eames and Eames, The Power of 10. I might be dating myself a whole bunch. Yeah, I am. They were the ones who created modern furniture, but they also did a lot of marketing. And there's this video of this man in the park, and then it zooms out, and then you see the whole park, and it zooms out again, and you see the city, and it zooms out. So if you can picture this with me, until it's in space, and you just see a speck of the earth, and it zooms out in the power of 10 each time, and then it comes back in and in and in and in and in, and then it comes in even closer and looks at the cell, one of this man's cell in the park, right? We have that power to pull in when we need to resource ourselves. And we have the power to pull out, to remind ourselves of our interconnectedness. And this is probably the top skill of happiness that there is. Let's do one more exercise to close this out. If you can take your eyes just a little bit off the screen, that would be great. If you have access to arms or legs, even better. And if your eyes are closed, great. Or if you want to focus just behind and look at something just past the camera, you can begin either alternate tapping your legs, or alternate tapping your feet, or alternate tapping your hands, but just bringing yourself down into your body. You can wiggle in your seat right and left, or just feel what you're sitting on to feel that heaviness. When you feel like you have a little bit of connection to your body, you can open your eyes and take a look around your room. You can either find things that are similar, so looking for things that are red or blue, so all the same color. You can also look for things that are similar shape. Once you've labeled 2 or 3 things, you can bring your attention back and just take a full exhale if you can. Good. Great. So one of the quickest ways to check in with yourself, am I future tripping? Am I rear view mirroring? Is to get yourself grounded in the present moment. And so whatever techniques allow you to do that, there's so many different ones. I hope that you will use those this week. Yeah, someone wrote in the chat box, I remember The Power of 10. You have the book with pictures. Yeah, very cool. Yeah. So often when I get so wrapped up in myself, I'll look for that something that has deeper meaning or gets me outside, something that allows me to see that there's a bigger picture, and it really helps. So thank you all. You're amazing. Thank you for being flexible with us. I really, really appreciate waiting a week. Oh, you're welcome. Yeah. Oh, you're fine. We're so glad that you were able to join us today. Someone wrote in a comment. And I will also say there's nothing to prepare. Just coming, arriving, and showing up is all that you need. So come as you are is really the best way. So, all right.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everybody. And thank you, Ben. You're
Absolutely.
welcome, Carol.
Yes, thank you for guiding us today, Melissa. I appreciate it. Thank you all for joining. We're grateful. We'll meet again for this same session on December 4th, so about 3 weeks. But very grateful to have you today. I'll send out some resources here this week, and I'll make sure to include that Power of 10 video so
Oh,
that you all
cool.
can
Thanks.
experience it. Yeah,
Did you Google it really fast?
I did. I did. Yep.
I love it. Awesome. Thanks,
Fantastic.
Al. Thank you, Raquel, and thank you, Ben. And I appreciate everybody who came today. We'll see you guys in the first week of December.